Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I'm very grateful to the Scottish Government for securing time to debate this issue and for the work they've already undertaken in the construct of the strategy we debate in part today. And if I may say so, the timing of this is very well pitched, coming as it does hot on the heels of the festive period, which, whilst is a bright and joyous collection of days for most, serves as a counterpoint to amplify the isolation endured by many. That nearly 80% of our adult population have experienced loneliness is a stark reminder of the human condition. We are a social animal, but so much about our modern life precludes meaningful social interaction. Considerable amount of our lives is spent in virtual worlds of our own creation now. And whilst we are most certainly active in many cases and informed, it is easy to spend much of that time in relative isolation. That isolation, as we've already heard, can impact massively on physical health, with a heightened risk of cardiovascular problems and dementia. Loneliness and mental ill health have a causal and self-sustaining relationship, and given that 1/4 of all doctor's appointments have an underlying mental health issue at their root, this is a massive impact on the flow and functionality of our wider health service. Now, I don't mean to do our country down when I point to the fact that recent studies show that the vast majority of people in the communities that we all represent do not recognise the presence of a community spirit where they live. Now, that's a worrying reality. It's something that we have seen underscored in the steady erosion of opportunities for and engagement in volunteering that we have heard a great deal about in the cross-party group on volunteering, which I am very proud to convene. But I'm very grateful for the work of the Scottish Government in their efforts to draw volunteering through as a golden thread in all policy areas. How we construct the places where we live is key to turning all that around. Now, the built environment is so important to establishing meaningful social cohesion in our society and to reducing social isolation. But the pressures of housing demand and the business models of developers mean that all too often we are building dormitories and not communities. Planning by increment has been such that the expansion of our urban landscape has been undertaken without much thought at all of place. Thousands upon thousands of homes built, but with seldom a thought given to the creation of community hubs or spaces for communal activity for recreation. But it is also in the maintenance of our existing towns and cities where we exacerbate this problem of isolation still further. Now, I have told this chamber before of the time that I chaired the Scottish Older People's Assembly in this very room, and on asking them what their greatest concern was, I was shocked to learn that this was the fear of falling. Put simply, Deputy Presiding Officer, the fear of falling reduces the orbit of your world, especially at this time of year. As we know, the icy weather just before Christmas brought with it a spike in fracture cases presenting at our A&E departments. But if you're in your 80s, already frail, and don't have faith in the safety of pavements around you at the best of times, you're far more likely to stay at home. It's why I sought and won support from this chamber for the introduction of a comprehensive national falls strategy. Now, I have been challenged at times by government members and ministers who point me to the 2014 falls framework. And I accept that that exists, but I say to them it isn't working entirely. It doesn't stretch the provision of grit in our streets on icy days or handrails on our hills. It doesn't look to the even surfacing of our roads and pavements, and it doesn't propose the training of non-NHS public sector staff in how to respond and offer assistance when somebody does fall. Now, as such, we need to work with our Scottish local authority partners to devise a national falls strategy which looks at risk of falling in every aspect of life. By so doing, we can reduce the strain on our NHS, improve social cohesion, and most importantly, increase the size of the social universe in which our most frail and infirm constituents currently exist. But, Presiding Officer, loneliness is not, of course, the preserve of the elderly. Ask any young person who has endured an adverse childhood experience, and they will tell you how isolating trauma, attachment disorder, and loss can be. Yet we still don't properly identify these young people, let alone help them to fully recover. Now, a weight of evidence shows us that these events cause so much difficulty for them in later life, and loneliness is right up there. It's why Sir Harry Burns put this at the heart of his review on NHS targets. And it is a theme picked up by the Red Cross in the briefing that we all received in advance of this debate, when they said that major life events which change someone's sense of self and their ability to connect with other people should be seen as moments of particular risk. We must therefore act on this call from the former Chief Medical Officer and use the data already available to us to identify trauma early on so that those vulnerable young people receive access to trauma recovery at an early stage. That can be delivered through the simple act of befriending, one of the most powerful antidotes to loneliness that there is for any age group. Yet we have seen many such services struggle with core funding in recent years. So I lend the support of these benches to calls from the third sector organisations for mainstream government support and assistance to sustain them into the long term. But we must look for an appropriate policy response to this issue wherever we may find it. And to that end, I do welcome the appointment of the UK government, by the UK government, of a Minister for Loneliness in Tracy Crouch. That is the silver lining to an otherwise calamitous reshuffle, but I would urge the Scottish Government to follow suit in that respect. Presiding Officer, people are often lonely in our communities in plain sight. They are all around us, but seldom known to us, yet their eyes are turned to this chamber for solutions, and it is incumbent upon us not to let them down. So I move the amendment in my name. Thank you.